And welcome to the program. My name is James Nichols, Devils beat reporter in New Jersey Hockey Now. Welcome to Devils Rink Report, episode 2. We are live, and I'm not in San Jose tonight. My buddy Zach Berman is. Um, and he's taking care of the boots on the ground situation, while I'm here back in New Jersey, taking care of our show. So today, special guest Arthur Staple will be joining us in just a few short minutes. But before we get there, just a couple things to talk about as far as tonight's game against the San Jose Sharks. So puck drop is, unfortunately for everybody here, 10 o'clock at night. Hope you guys all have had your coffee. Because you're going to need some caffeine to stay awake. This is going to be a late one. If you're an East Coaster, if you're on the East Coast of the United States and you're staying up to watch this show, so you will need some caffeine in your system so that you can watch tonight's game and stay awake for it. But we have a 10 o'clock puck drop tonight, and by all accounts, the Devils are looking to rebound against the San Jose Sharks after their wild loss, we can call it, against the Colorado Avalanche that started off as looking like a barn burner for the Avalanche. I mean, in favor of heavily, right? They were taking it to the Devils last Tuesday. They were decimating them by all accounts. 5-0 score by the middle of the second period. And then all of the sudden they turned on and they scored 4 in 4 minutes, a goal a minute, will you? And they just heavily got back into that game. Until they didn't We're going to talk about that with Arthur Staple today. Just what it meant that they got back into the game, what it meant that they then fell out of it a second time, essentially in 60 minutes. Whether or not that's a concerning trend or not. But one of the most concerning things, perhaps, was that Jacob Markstrom. Yes, it was his first game back. Yes, it was a return from injury, but it's not the first time this season he did not look, how do I say this nicely, sharp. Wasn't the first time he's let in a couple of soft goals this year. And listen, it's not the first time Jacob Markstrom has done this with the Devils. Now, albeit he has made some game-breaking saves in his career for the Devils. He's certainly been a difference maker at times, but um, he really struggled against the potent Avalanche offense, right? Potent by every sense of the word, but you would have liked to see him, start stronger a little bit there. Gave up two quick goals on two savable shots for sure, low danger chances, and we'll see how he rebounds here tonight if he is in fact in the starters net. But it does look like it's going to be Jake Allen and Markstrom is going to watch from the bench. So we will see how that goes. Just taking a minute to check in on our guest here, make sure that we are all set there. Um, Sean, if you're hearing me, he says that he did not get an email quite yet. So let's see if I can shoot him over this link now. This makes for great, great TV, guys, by the way. I know you're here just to look at our pretty faces, right, Sean? I know that's what we're doing. But so yeah, I'm gonna filibuster here a little bit while we get Arthur on the line. But um so the Devils will play the Sharks tonight. And the last time they played them, listen, that was no easy game. That was a game where, look, the Sharks offense is elite. And that's the problem with a team like the Sharks, is that maybe the Devils underestimated them. Maybe they were, a bit of win streak and were bound to hit some bumps in the road along the way. But by all accounts, they didn't necessarily handle them the way they handled a few teams previously amid that win streak. So we will see how they play the Sharks tonight, a team that they certainly should handle and handle well, but it is an elite offense. You just don't want them to learn how to defend. And their goaltending for sure has some question marks, but it has a bright future, it looks like. So we will see. But it looks like we have our man Arthur now, and he's going to join us on the Devils Rink Report. Arthur, there you are, man. How you doing? Great to see you,
Uh,
and thanks for joining.
it's good to be here, James. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, man. And I know that you're on your new venture this year with Hockey Night in New York. Great to see you on the airwaves with Sean Cuthbert over there. You guys do some great work. But my first question for you, Arthur, is how many TVs do you own, and what is your electric bill? Because you're watching a lot of hockey these days.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of pick and choose now. I spent a lot of time in my career covering one team, covering two teams. You go at the legacy media, you go where the action is, and the Rangers are the big dog in the area, and the Islanders are Devils kind of fight it out. But now it's been nice to kind of watch what I want to watch, and keeping up with the Devils even before the 8-game winning streak. You knew this team was going to be something special, just the way that they were built, the way that they started to look in preseason, the way that they were kind of shaking out. So it's fun to be able to watch them and kind of have a little bit of an analytical eye on them, and bounce around, see some highlights, break down what you can break down, and just share my thoughts on social media. We'll see where it goes from here in the next few months, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's great to see you, part of the Devils coverage. We're a small but mighty bunch, and so we're always welcoming, some new guys to the beat, or new gals to the beat with open arms. So it's great to have you. But let's get to the hockey. So Tuesday's game, obviously a 7-4 loss to the Colorado Avalanche, was just filibustering about that a little bit, just how, they started real slow. For some reason or another turned it on, but then fell off a little bit then. But I want to start with Jacob Markstrom. Um, a lot of question about whether or not that should have been the game that the Devils threw him back in and said, let's get your first game in under your belt. Do you think that that was the game against the Avalanche, who Sheldon Keefe coined the best offense in the league? Do you think that was the game to throw him in? Was that the right decision?
It's a long season, and he's been out for a few weeks. I don't disagree with Keefe's and the coaching staff's thinking process. Even before the injury, and maybe it was because of the injury, you didn't see really good stuff from Markstrom in the early going, and just this couple of starts before he ended up leaving for a couple of weeks with the injury, with the lower body injury. So he works his way back. Jake Allen's been a stalwart in there. Nico Dawes had a great start, but Jacob Markstrom is the number one goalie, and he's playing for a contract, whether it's here or elsewhere. Um, he's got to be able to prove that he can carry the load and be the 50 to 55 start guy here. That's what they made the trade to bring him over here to do. I'm sure he was feeling like he was raring to go. So you can't really, you don't want to create a soft landing for him. He's the guy. If you want him to be the guy, you got to face off against the best. And even though he didn't look great in that game, I think I tweeted it out. According to Clearsight Hockey, my favorite go-to uh, data site, 16 high danger chances for the Avs. No one's standing up to that, especially with the guys who are delivering those high danger chances on the Avs, where you've got McKinnon, McCarr, Nietzsche's. The list goes on. It's a high-powered offense, and when you give them free reign, especially in transition like they did in the first half of that game, may he rest in peace. Ken Dryden in his prime isn't stopping any of those either, or Marty in his prime, if we want to keep it local. So, it was a tough spot for sure. But I think now with the 3 and 4, you have to balance it out in LA, out in Southern California, rather. I think it was a natural to put him in there. You could definitely second guess it, but I thought, the way that Sheldon Keefe kind of handled it, not only with Markstrom, but with the team, where, you're coming off an 8-game win streak, you can flush a bad one. And I think that's the attitude they want to have with Markstrom too.
Yeah, I hear that. And, that's the thing, right? You mentioned the attitude they want to have with him, and there's a lot of talk of a potential extension, and it sounds like when it continues to get reported that both sides really want this, and despite how things went the other night, Just the overall picture. You look at a 35-year-old goaltender. They already have one of those locked up for 5 years, but it seems like this was the plan all along. Obviously, they acquired him, at the later age of 33, going on 34 in hockey terms, right? I'm 33, so I'm not later age, but in hockey years, going on 34, now he's 35, going on 36. Um, in terms of an extension, what side of the fence are you on? Do they proceed with caution here, or is this something that they should do?
I think there's a lot of different ways they could go, and I would imagine that, excuse me, the reason that it's not done yet is probably because the Devils are trying to hold the line on term here. Keep it to 2 or 3 years. I'm sure that the player wants 4 years or more. But even though the trends, we're seeing lots of 8-year, 8-figure deals coming out in the last few days, whether it's Marty Nichols in Colorado, Thomas Harley in Dallas, Logan Cooley out in Utah. I think goalies are kind of trending in the other direction at the moment. I think we're seeing a lot of the kind of the established elite guys that aren't locked up and getting into that more advanced age, like you said, mid 30s into late 30s. Maybe in years past, people would have overvalued that goalie position or that number one goalie spot. But I think here you got to be smart. If the Devils, you're not in a situation. I understand the cap is going up a ton, but you're not in a situation where you're going to have lots of free cap space laying around. And also, if they're going to be as good as they have shown so far, you want to have some flexibility in the next year or two to stay an elite team and give yourself a little bit of chance to add when you need to in the middle of the season or at the deadline. So, I'm sure Tom Fitzgerald is trying to get the best deal he can for his own team and for the near future of his team. And you also have to kind of keep an eye out and see who else is out there. I think that little stretch with Allen and Dawes, where they were able to not only to hold down the fort, but win a couple of games with some good goaltending, that puts a little pressure on Markstrom here to perform, not only to keep this team going as well as it's been, but also to secure his future here. So, I think it's okay that we haven't seen anything, come through in terms of a deal on either side. And you definitely, if you're a Devils fan, you're probably hoping for the shorter 2 or 3 year term here at whatever reasonable number, where it could be 6 million or something in that range, because you do want to leave yourself a little bit flexible, and also maybe not want to commit yet because you want to see what he can do getting back from this injury.
Yeah, and it's funny because we see another goaltender in Jersey. We mentioned Jake Allen, playing really strong hockey right now. Like, how big of a gap between Allen and Markstrom do you think there is? And should the Devils consider giving them an equal share at the net, or perhaps more of the starting duties at this point? I mean, I understand, Markstrom is just coming back from injury and didn't necessarily have a ton of games under his belt at the beginning of the season, but I asked Sheldon Keefe, I said, is he making it kind of hard for you not to play him right now? Meaning Allen, just with how well he's playing. One of the best goaltenders in the league right now, numbers wise. And he said, listen, like you said, Markstrom is our number one, but where are you with that? Like, are they almost equal in terms of, skill at this point in their careers? And should that load maybe be a 50-50 split?
I don't know if you want to attack it that way. I think you can still map out, for the next few months anyway, as long as everybody's healthy, a stretch where Markstrom gets 2, Allen gets 1, and maybe it changes a little bit depending on back-to-backs and schedule and things like that. But I think the benefit for the Devils is Jake Allen isn't that far removed from being a number one guy in Montreal. I mean, whether he was a quality number one necessarily is another story, but goalies from year to year, they vary so much, but it's not like he's he's not in a definitive backup stage of his career right now. He's still roughly, he's still the same age range as Markstrom. It's not like a Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick situation like you have with the Rangers, where you brought in a guy who's at the tail end of his career to be that backup. I think Allen has a great temperament for it. He's a personable guy. He's clearly a good presence in the room. So I think to be able to have that easygoing enough personality, which is hard to find in a goalie, to be able to handle whether you're the backup and you don't play for a week or two, or maybe you get 4 or 5 starts in a row because someone's hurt, or maybe you jump in for a couple in a row when the number one guy is struggling. And like we said, we'll see what happens in California, but maybe that is a scenario, and you have to keep your options open. And I think the competition is always good, and to have a capable backup like that, and certainly have a capable number 3 in Dawes too. You want that upward pressure on the number 1 guy if he's not performing, and also if he's an unrestricted free agent too. I
Yeah.
think you have to have multiple plans in place as a GM and as an organization when it comes to that sort of thing, unless you have a guy who's 27, 28, and is going to be your number 1 for a decade or so, or at least that's the plan. This is a fluid situation with the age and the health and the quality of the recent play for these guys. So yeah, I think it is pretty wide open. And I think the other part that we've seen is that overall the goaltending has been, the numbers are average, I would say, save percentage wise, goals saved above expectation. This is a team that runs on their skaters, that runs on having the puck more than the other team and generating offense and high danger chances and keeping the puck away from their own zone, away from their own goalie. So if this team makes it so that it doesn't matter who's in net and they're not need to get 10 big saves from somebody, then you're even in a better situation, especially with the contract situation for Markstrom. You know that whoever is in there, you have a chance to win because of the way this team plays.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there. I think the puck possession, factor is so relevant in this conversation because that's what the Devils do, right? They hold on to that puck so much that they can lighten the workload for their goaltenders, thus, extending the duration of these netminders' careers, just being able to cut down how many saves they have to make. Listen, the Nico Dawes thing that throws a little bit of a wrench into this, kind of a little bit, right? It seems like they're proceeding with the 2 veteran goaltenders, but Nico Dawes has proven time and time again that he can hold his own. And, you saw what he did against the Minnesota Wild the other night. Obviously, they're going through their struggles right now, but they're still, a really good team. There was some whispers that other teams might be interested in plucking him off the waiver wire, and it just seems like he's ready. So you do wonder how that situation is going to play itself out, how much longer Nico Dawes might even be a New Jersey Devil. But we're going to move over to the blue line now. We're just going to talk about, in that 7-4 loss, obviously 5 quick goals for the Avalanche, right? It was uncharacteristic for the Devils to have given up that many that quickly. First game on the road of a 4-game Western road trip, but the key factor in what was going on there was Brett Pesce's absence. How much did this team miss him in Denver?
A lot. And if this is as it sounds, where it's going to be multiple weeks without Pesce, and they went through that last year too. It's tough. He's a real steadying presence, and I think he's really not just a stay-at-home guy. I think having that Carolina background where the puck is always in motion and the guys are always in motion, the Devils seemingly it's a similar style to the way that they want to play. I think the Devils have more skill than Carolina's had, where it's not throwing pucks and bodies and kind of making a whole mess of the offensive zone. The Devils are much more crisp, I think, in their outlook and their style. But he fits right in, and he's fit right in since day one. And he's obviously personality wise fit in really well too. And between him and Brendan Dillon. So yeah, it's a big loss. And the way that Jonathan Kovacevic played last season, really stepping up in class in his first year as a Devil too. It's a hard thing to maintain. I think the one negative constant, and it's certainly not a big negative, 8 and 2, is the way that Simon Nemec and Jonas Siegenthaler, who have mostly been together, have played and really struggled, I think, with quality opposition. Siegenthaler has been a pretty steady guy, but Nemec, the offense he provides and the way that he can skate is really elite. But I think on this team, particularly with the guys that are playing in front of him, whether Hamilton and Luke Hughes, you want that third pair to be a little bit more reliable. And I think taking Pesce out of the mix too on the right side, and you put in Seamus Casey, who's a nice young player too, but again, it's kind of similar physical profile to Nemec. That's tough. That's tough when you're in a building where you're not getting your matchups on the road against a team like the Avs. And that was an oddity, I think, because of the ridiculous number of chances and goals the Avs had in such a quick fashion. But I think the through line of, if you can nitpick one thing, is you'd like to see Nemec be a little bit tougher. Physically he is what he is, but I think just maybe being a little bit smarter with pucks and kind of trying to work his way up the ice a little bit more. But otherwise, I think the way that this team plays, and I think you got to give credit not just to Tom Fitzgerald and Sheldon Keefe, but Brad Shaw, who came in this year as the new associate coach and guy who's coached D for a long, long time. I think he's always kind of been in the shadows because he's always been with John Tortorella, who draws a lot of the oxygen, especially with the way that his teams have played. But Brad Shaw has had a lot to do with that in Columbus and Philly, where, they defend hard. I'm sure that they wished in both of those stops they had the kind of talent that they have in Jersey that Shaw has to work with. But it's all kind of come together quite nicely in the top four to see the way this team plays. And again, I do watch the highlights, and then I kind of go to Steve Valiquette's ClearSight data place and kind of check to see what I've seen. And you see Luke Hughes up at the top of the league, top 15 or so in terms of high danger chances for and against on the ice. He's, I think, +4 per game. Considering he missed all of training camp, it's really remarkable to see not just his natural ability, but just the way he's kind of systemically kind of fitting in again in year 2 with Sheldon Keefe and really becoming a true top pair guy. And Dougie Hamilton, I think I've heard lots of chatter and seen online that this is the guy maybe they'd look to move to try to create some salary cap flexibility. But Dougie gives you what he gives you. And if you don't look at the numbers, this is a guy who eats minutes. He can produce on the power play, and the power play has been real good. He's still an effective guy to have in this group. So considering considering you don't have Kovacevic, haven't had him all year. Now with Pesce out, obviously it was a bad one in Colorado, but I'm interested to see these next 3, not against super high talented, super high, high producing opponents, but San Jose has a lot of good young guys up front. Anaheim, similar profile. You'd like to see them get back to that kind of clamping it down, turning teams over, getting up in transition, getting the pucks up to the forwards, and kind of loosening up the ice as opposed to kind of loosening up when teams are going the other way. But I think overall, the way that D has played, where we were a little bit unsure with Kovacevic's injury, Hughes' holdout, I think they're in a good place so far early in this season.
Yeah, you're right. And I think tonight's a good game against the Sharks, who by all means are a very talented offense, but they're very young, right? So without having Pesce tonight, and like we said, for the next maybe couple weeks here, it's a good test for them to, maybe get reacclimated here and get used to maybe some of the new pairings. Obviously, we have a few new ones. I think Dylan and Nemitz are back together, but I think Luke Hughes and Seamus Casey are going to skate alongside of each other. So that's an interesting pairing right there. And then you see Hamilton and Siegenthal are back with each other. But, just mentioning that top 6 that they currently have right now, look, no one's going to replace what Brett Pesce provides, but who on this blue line can step up and maybe at least, give a little bit of what he has to offer?
I'd be interested to see what Seamus Casey can do, with a little bit of runway here. He was kind of the odd man out. Injury obviously made that decision for them, but I was sort of curious, especially if Nemitz struggled, if Casey was healthy, whether that would be a bit of a rotation maybe, and maybe once Pesce is back and Casey is now healthy, that maybe that'll be something that they consider. But you'd like to see Casey kind of grab the reins here and be a regular contributor. He had such a good start last season, and then I think it was another injury just kind of tailed off a little bit after that, and really the rest of the guys being healthy kind of pushed him out of that group. But I think playing with Luke could help him. It's going to be a track meet style D pair, and I'm interested to see again when you're playing San Jose, when you're playing Anaheim, more San Jose, where they love to, they've got such talented forwards, not so good on defense. And if you get into a track meet with them, it can bite you. It bit the Rangers the other night because they've obviously got Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, guys that can score. And you don't want to be able to, it's a different thing when you're giving the Avs those kind of chances than maybe anybody else that they're going to see out west, other than maybe Edmonton. But you'd like to see the D core at least be smart, be solid. You don't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be like a crazy low event game, but maybe not step out of the structure too much, because we saw too much of that in the Colorado game, and just, obviously when everything that is a turnover at the opposing blue line ends up in the back of your net, it looks horrible. But I think if they can cut down some of those plays and kind of steady themselves, and Casey's going to get a real opportunity playing with Hughes here, so got to make the most of it.
Provide. Although Luke has stepped it up defensively, and he does look like he's rounding himself out well there. You're listening to Arthur Staple, Hockey Night in New York, formerly The Athletic. I want to talk about the penalty kill. Obviously, against the Avalanche the other night, that was another uncharacteristic for this season thing for them to have done, giving up four goals on 7 opportunities. We talked about the absence of Brett Pesce. Was that the only reason why that penalty kill was, not as up to par as it previously was? I mean, they had killed something like 21 of their last 22 before that game. Is it Pesce's absence alone that contributed to that big fall off in that game?
I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, but once a power play like Colorado's gets rolling, and you saw a couple of the McKinnon one-timer, just the Natchez goal, just a couple of like short side one-timers or screenshots. I think once Markstrom gave up a couple of those, the confidence just kind of drains out of you, especially for him, just coming back from the injury. So a bad confluence of events there kind of leads to a ridiculous night. But as you said, they'd been 2 or 3 in the league, over 90% really up to that point. And I think some of the guys, that's where you see a guy like Connor Brown that they brought in, who's really been effective. And you still, their forwards are so skilled and so able to kind of turn defense to offense, that you see it at 5-on-5. You even see it on their power play. It's certainly effective on the penalty kill. And when you can have a couple of your main guys, when you can have a Jesper Bratt be one of your main PK guys, you're gonna be able to attack, and you're gonna be able to turn guys over and give that threat of offense, and maybe put an opposing power play back on their heels a little bit. So, if we see more of what we saw the other night in Denver again on this road trip, then you can talk about it a little bit more. But I think as a one-off, you just sort of toss it aside and see what they can, look at the full body of work of the first 9 games, and it's been real strong on the penalty kill.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just getting the acclimation under their feet of some new pairings and units really there with the absence of Pesci, which is a part of it. But for sure got away from their game the other night, which leads me to the comeback. Right, we saw them go down 5 goals. But came back and scored 4 in 4 minutes. We mentioned that before. It was impressive to see, obviously that drop pass from, drop no look pass from Jack Hughes to Jesper Bratt, and then he, feeds it back to him for the goal to bring him within 1. But then they unraveled again. And I'm still trying to figure out for myself which side of the fence I'm on. Was it a resilient effort to see them, close the gap, or is it a red flag that they, let it unravel and get away from them essentially another time in that 60-minute game in the third period?
If you weren't on an 8-game winning streak, maybe you'd have more concern. But I think you take the positive out of that, which is this team can score against anybody. And I know that Colorado's, Mackenzie Blackwood's not been in, and defensively they've given up a little bit more than they would like as well. But I think to quickly go to 5-0, where you've won 8 in a row, and you've kind of gone, as hard grinding things out, trying to get W after W after W, you can be forgiven to say them, all right, well, we'll just take the rest of this night off. We'll eat the 7-1 loss or whatever it's going to be, and we'll regroup because we're on this road trip. But they didn't do that, and they pushed down there. They pushed back hard. And those quick 4 goals, I think Colorado was standing around thinking, like, what are we doing? And, I think getting the power play kind of bailed them out a little bit, and that kind of steadied things for Colorado. But I think for the Devils to be able to show that and still show the rhythm that they have and the ability to bounce back, I think is still a positive. They weren't able to complete it. If they had, I think they'd be everybody'd be talking about them right now. But But to me, game 10, 8-game win streak, you take the loss and you take some of the positives out, which are, they're still hunting for pucks. There's, you like Dougie's goal was ridiculous. That goal was ridiculous. They're still humming along. And I still feel like as bad a game as it was for a lot of it, I think you can still kind of have a little smile on your face saying like, yeah, we almost did that. So even playing that bad.
So 8-2, only 10 games into the season. It's hard to pass any judgments, I would say at this point, but what's your view of this team? Do you see a contender? Do you see a pretender? And if it is the latter, what do they need to become that contender status?
I mean, I don't make my predictions are usually about as unreliable as anybody's, but I had Devils Oilers in the Stanley Cup final when I threw mine up on Twitter. So I'm sure I'm going to be framing that if I can go back to it and the Devils make it that far. But I wasn't blowing smoke on that front. I really felt like when I look at the teams in the East, especially in the Metro, Carolina's obviously Carolina, and they will always be a quality regular season team. But I felt like there was a lot of room at the top of that division for a team like Jersey to put up some serious points and be able to be one of the best teams, not only in that division, but in the East. And, the fact that they're one of the best teams in the whole league through 10 games is maybe a bit of a surprise, but it doesn't surprise me to see them playing as well as they are. Health, I think, was the main factor in their fall off last year. They've got it for the most part now. And you see what that top six is looking like now. And I think there's obviously some things to be concerned about in the bottom six with some, Cody Glass got off to a great start, concerned a little bit about his health and his ability to kind of stay in there. The fourth line, you're not loving that, but I feel like too, when Glass is back, when Dadonov is back, you can kind of have some more options there. Maybe you see Andre Palat drop down to that bottom six to shore it up, or even to the fourth line. And you think about how effective he could be on that fourth line if that was something that you needed to have. But those to me are far off problems, unless we start seeing a couple, 3-4 losses in a row, which I don't think we're going to see just yet. I think this team is legit. The goaltending again, you're not getting elite goaltending. And I feel like you pour through the data and you pour through some of the basic stats and you say, what stands out? Obviously Jack Hughes stands out. He's in the MVP race through the first month. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's great for him confidence wise to be on pace for over 50 goals and be that guy who's not just an elite playmaker, but now an elite goal scorer. The connection, like you mentioned with Bratt, is this is a duo that they're not gonna put themselves up with McDavid and Draisaitl just yet, but as line mates and as guys who know each other well, it's one of the best duos in the league. And then I think that what really fueled them for me and fueled the confidence that I have in this team is seeing the way that the Meyer, Hischier, Mercer line played the first 5-6 games, where scoring big goals, a line that's heavy to play against. You don't see a lot of number two lines with that kind of combination of skill and edge. And I think it was a kind of a masterstroke for Keefe to put them together and to balance that out with the Hughes Bratt combination up top. And then you've got some of these third line guys. Connor Brown's been an incredible addition. Arseny Griciuk, a great young player who seems to be only getting better and getting more confident. It's a really, really strong group, stronger, I think, and deeper than it's been for a long time. You got to stay healthy, of course, but to be able to win the games they've won without a .940 save percentage or without a 40% power play, they are not average, but some of their metrics are kind of middle of the pack. And I think that's an excellent sign when you're winning games, when they're not excelling in any specific area. It just means the team is good and they know that they're good and they know they can turn it on the power play. They can turn it on the penalty kill. They can get big saves from at least Jake Allen so far. And you hope Jacob Markstrom. You can have big nights from some of your D. You can have big nights from your top six. You can get contributions from the third line. These are all really good situations to be in to set up a long season. And there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be subtractions and additions. That's what good teams do. But I think they know. I always go back. I'm a longtime Islander writer for years and years, and I always go back when they were struggling, kind of bumbling along in the early 2010s. They had their breakout year in 2014-15, where they were a top team right from the start of the season. Same group of guys that had been bumbling along. And I remember sitting with Kyle Oppozo and just asking him, how do you go from being a team that loses winnable games to a team that wins more often than not? And he's just like, we've all been on good teams at youth hockey, college, whatever, right, junior. He's like, when you have a good team, you just look around and there's confidence in the room. And I think the Devils are there right now, and that's going to carry them a long way this year.
I just want to get your thoughts quickly on, you mentioned Arsenij Griciak. You're watching a couple of outstanding rookies across the three Metro teams here, namely Matthew Schaefer, who just looks better and better every night. But what are you seeing out of Arsenij Griciak? What do you like from him?
A really good fit. And I think that's a hard thing to find. Like he's come over. He's still young. It's not like he's a 10-year KHL guy. He comes here. I think his seeing some clips from his Telegram account where he's kind of having fun being a young guy in a foreign place. I think that's a great attitude to have to bring over here. And I think he's just game for whatever. Bottom six, top six, power play, no power play. He just wants to be a part of it. And I think that attitude serves him so well. You do see guys who come, depending on the stage they are in their lives, whether they come from Russia or come from Eastern Europe, and they're unsure where they fit in. Maybe they get a little setback in training camp where they're not playing the role. It can go off the rails real fast. And this kid just seems like, yeah, I'm happy to be here, I'm playing pro hockey, trying new foods, doing whatever young guys do when they, being away from home for the first time. And I think it's translated to his game. He just seems to be willing to do whatever it takes to stay in the lineup and get minutes. I think the skill is showing, the looseness is showing, and it's really fun to see a young guy like that fit in so well to a team that's also on the rise.
Yeah, he looks real good. Jack said the other day he thinks he can grow with the core, which is, a huge compliment coming from the face of the franchise. So sure. We like what we see from Griciak. You staying up late for this one tonight?
Probably not. I'll be catching some highlights. I'll probably watch a little bit at the start. I'll probably watch a little bit of Rangers out in Edmonton, and I was watching a little bit of the Islanders before. Not seeing too much good from that, but yeah, it's definitely once the kids are off to school and I can settle in the morning and kind of recap everything myself. That's my MO these days. I'm not a live sports watcher late into the night these days.
You're listening to Arthur Staple, co-host of the Hockey Night in New York podcast, formerly of The Athletic. Arthur, you're one of the best. Thank you for joining us today.
You got it, James. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. There he goes. That was Arthur Staple. Again, you can follow him at Stape NHL on X. One of the best, real good guy. Got to know him well over the last couple of years, and really enjoyed having him around New Jersey Devils hockey. Great hockey mind, and you should definitely be giving him a follow and tuning into whatever it is that he's doing. Listen, it's always good to stay in tune with what's going on with the Islanders, what's going on with the Rangers, obviously, because they are the direct division rivals of the Devils. And now that Staples also looping in the Devils to his coverage, you're getting the best of everything. You're staying up to date with your team, you're staying up to date with the direct rivals, and there's again very few other minds in hockey when it comes to knowing the game. Obviously, you just heard him now speak that you want to tune into. Staple is one of the best. So all right, let's move on here and listen. If you guys are here now and you're tuning in, we really appreciate you being here to the Devils Rink Report podcast. Drop your questions in the chat. Let's talk a little bit about what's on your mind, what you're thinking ahead of tonight's game against the Sharks. Whatever it is that you want to talk about, drop it in the chat. We're going to answer those questions later. But let's get to a couple of talking points today. Regarding today's game, and the state of the team right now, starting with the Devils now down to their second right-handy, or only two really, I guess, caliber right-hand defenseman, right? Listen, Seamus Casey has to, certainly, um, certainly has to establish himself as a full-time NHLer, has to prove that he can hang with the rest of them, right? But right now they're down to just Nemitz and Hamilton, right? And everybody else is, yes, Brennan Dillon is there too, and he's looking pretty good, but it's real tough right now without Pesce. It's a tough look. So with Casey in the fold now, you want to see him excel, like Staples said, but it's going to be tough. I mean, the PK issues, are they gonna resolve themselves? I mean, is Brad Shaw and Jeremy Colleton gonna be able to come together with the mix of defense and these special teams and figure out, okay, what is the best way to deploy our troops here? Um, let's see. Let's see what they can do. It's a good test tonight against the Sharks, a team that, they can try some things on. Because they, again, like I said, they're an inexperienced team. They're talented, but they're an inexperienced team, and they're a team that you want to see them handle a little bit here. So we'll see how they bounce back after Tuesday. But one of the pairings I wanted to focus on a little bit is the Luke Hughes and Seamus Casey pairing. Like I said, Casey comes up. And look, he looked real good in the preseason. He was transitioning the puck real well. He looked real confident in, his ability to distribute. He looked real confident in his ability to power play quarterback on the first unit. I mean, he looked impressive, but there are those questions about his defensive game. His size is a factor too. Is he going to be a guy who can, skate against an opponent who's standing at 6'4" and 210 pounds? Um, but he's paired with Luke, who has taken some very good strides in his game. Um, and you can attribute that to skating with Brett Pesce. And that dates all the way back to last season when the two of them were injured at the beginning of the year and they got to know each other real well. And it was also almost a blessing in disguise that way that they got to work together so closely and so often with each other. Um, but you wonder, right? It seems like at this point, every single player, I mean, let's not overreact, not every single player, but at least once a game, sans, I think the win in Colorado, um, someone's getting hurt. And you know, you don't want to see another defenseman go down. But if they do, if somebody does, who's the next man up? You're looking at Ethan Edwards. You're looking at Kalen Addison. You're looking at Colton White. This is really not something that you want to have to worry about, but um, it does present itself as a legitimate possibility at this point. So we will see. Hopefully, they don't have to make one of those recalls. I would think the next guy up would be Ethan Edwards. He made himself look real good in the preseason. Sheldon Keefe was very complimentary of him. And, he's one of those guys who he's not going to, like Casey or Luke, show you this offensive flair, but he just showed some real stability, showed some real dependability. And look, he had some, sure, rookie mistakes that he was going to make. Of course, he's just 23 years old and still learning and developing the game at a professional level, right? This is going to be his first full season professionally, but I was impressed, and I think Sheldon Keefe was also impressed with how good Ethan Edwards was. He was named the direct replacement for Luke Hughes before he returned from that contract holdout, and while Seamus Casey was injured. So I think Sheldon Keefe does have some confidence in Edwards' ability. All right, so let's talk about my thoughts on Jacob Markstrom. We talked with Staple about how he felt, and I think he was bang on with a lot of the things he said. How concerned am I with Jacob Markstrom? I feel like we need to let him get some more time under his belt. He just came back from injury, and yes, it was not the best outing. You want to see stronger play from your starting goaltender, number one goaltender, who's, listen, commanding a $5 million AAV at least on his next contract, right? And we don't even know if it's going to be that low. It actually might be a little bit higher. We'll see in this rising cap. Um, Am I overly concerned? No. He's historically started slow and needs to get some work under him. And he's actually one of those goaltenders who likes to be more active. So when he's only seeing 20, 25 shots a game, he's getting a lighter workload, but he does like to see more. And listen, maybe that's tough with playing behind the Devils, right? They're a high puck possession team who, holds on to the puck a lot in the offensive zone. So there's going to be some downtime. But when he's on his game, I mean, Jacob Markstrom is a game-breaking goaltender. So am I overly concerned? Not yet. There hasn't been enough of a sample for me to be overreacting to this. But am I rushing, to the table to get an extension signed, to have him for the next 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is that's going to take him to sign the dotted line? No, not yet. I would say that let's see how this plays out, right? We have Jake Allen, excuse me, locked up for the next 5 years. We know he can be reliable. We have some guys waiting in the wings, such as Mikhail Yegorov and Jacob Malik, and how are they going to develop? Let's take the year and see the strides everybody takes or doesn't take, and let's see how this works itself out. Now, will Jake Allen be the 1A at some point or share equal net? Probably not, unless things really go off the rails. I think that the confidence level in Markstrom is still there. And look, it's not just the Devils. I mean, the other night we were in the box and he was hanging out with Team Sweden's management, and they were talking to him about how he was feeling and everything like that because they're relying on him to be their number one goaltender at the Olympics. So, there are a lot of people around not just the NHL, but hockey who have a lot of confidence in Jacob Markstrom. He's just got to get, his stride under him. It was a bit of a start and stop, start and stop beginning to the season for him. He suffered that injury early. And look, maybe it's behind him and now he can get really, really going, heading into November here. If you remember last season, um, it took Markstrom until about this time of the year to start playing some shutdown goaltending in net. So we will see. My personal opinion, I think you ride the hot hand, and give Allen, some at least 50% of the starts. But listen, if it were me, I might have put Jacob Markstrom in tonight and had Jake Allen start the other night against the Avalanche. But um, I'm behind the mic, and Sheldon Keefe is behind the bench. So we will see. So let's talk about Mercer moving back to Nico's Heischer's line with Timo Meyer. And getting the debut of Yuho Lamiko. Look, that's just a real good trio right there, right? Mercer, Meyer, and Heischer is one of the best, if not the best line on the New Jersey Devils' best forward line. And I say that because look, I see what everybody else sees with Andre Palat, right? You look at the stat sheet and you say, how could Andre Palat only have one assist, which takes away from that line? And I know it's cliche and you hate to hear it, but he does do a lot of those little things that allow Jack and Jesper to do what they got to do on the ice. I mean, you saw it the other night on that goal where Jack dropped the puck back to Jesper and Jesper gave it back to Jack on the rush. Where was Andre Palat? Well, he was net front. He was battling for position, and that took the eyes off of Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes. That distracted the goaltender. That had another player tied up with, Andre Palat not defending against those two players, and it opened up the ice for them, and it allowed them to score that goal. But I digress. Moving back to Mercer, Nico, and Timo as a trio, that is the Devils' best line right now. I mean, they just do everything together, in terms of defending, in terms of on offense. Everything they do is looking really good right now. Um, in their own end, they're making sure that the opposition is, keeping to the perimeter, low danger chances. It all just looks really good, right? Real well for them defensively. But then you get, into the offensive zone, and Timo's driving the bus. He's the guy who's playing distributor, he's playing distractor, he's playing disruptor. And that's everything that Timo Meyer does, right there. That's his MO, right? He's got the motor, he can drive the play, he can shoot the puck, and he can, battle for net front presence, and he's doing all those real well. Nico, hey, listen, he's not scoring a ton right now, but he's doing everything else well. He's distributing. That's something that, maybe he's adding to his arsenal this year. He's not a major distributor. He collects assists, but he's distributing a little bit more well this year. And I think those goals are going to come. We saw him score 35 last year. I think that they're coming. But listen, all three other zones, he's playing so well right now. You're looking at a potential Selke season out of Nico Hischier. So it's real good to see. And listen, Mercer's a real good complement to that line. That line can go up against the rest of them. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, whatever line the Edmonton Oilers want to throw out there, or tonight, Macklin Celebrini, who's at the top of the league in points. Like I'm sure that's going to be their assignment. So, um, and it's good to see him scoring. He's at a point per game pace, or maybe just underneath that now. But it looks like this is the season where maybe Dawson Mercer is going to put it all together, and that's what the Devils have been waiting for. There have been a lot of teams who have been interested in Dawson Mercer. The Devils have held on to him, and it's good to see that's paying off. But let's talk about Juho Lamiko. Listen, one game back from injury, which we didn't really know what the injury was, but we do now. Sorry, we don't now, but we do see him now in the lineup. And what did I see from him the other night? I saw a player who has good foot speed. I saw a player who wasn't a major liability. Did he do anything that stood out to me? No, not really. But sometimes that's the best thing, the best takeaway from a player who is back in the lineup, and you don't really know too much about. He didn't stand out to me in a way where I went, oh man, this is a player who is going to be a liability out there. He's going to cost the Devils goals. And listen, that was just good to see. So I would like to see him again tonight. We'll see how he plays against the San Jose Sharks and what it is that he can contribute. Um, okay, so just looking through my notes here. Next on the dock, we have let's just talk about, mentioned it a little bit before, Andre Palat, 1 assist in 10 games with two of the most skilled forwards on the team. Look, this is you have to come to expect this. And look, Sheldon Keefe tried. He tried this already. He wanted you know, Andre Palat to play on the third line. It was supposed to be him, Glass, and Connor Brown, and it looked real good. It was just until Evgeny Dadonov got hurt. And that's just the crux of it right there. There's nothing that is going to change until Evgeny Dadonov comes back. And then you'll see probably Palat move down to the third line again. Um, albeit, perhaps Dadonov will start on the third line when he comes back just to get some reps under him and move his way back up. Um, but that's just really what it is right now, is that the injuries have limited the Devils to having Palat back with Hughes and Bratt, and it's something that's familiar to Sheldon Keefe, and he's always complimentary of Palat's game. He always says he does those little things that we keep talking about, and I know you guys are sick of hearing it, but it's true that lets those two players do what they have to do to score. And listen, they're both scoring right now. So would it be nice to see somebody else on that, left side? Sure. Will it be Evgeny Dadonov when he returns? I think it will be. A lot of people are asking for Arseniy Gritiuk to move up there, and I get that, but at the same time, he's providing so much with the depth that you maybe want to keep him there and let him continue doing what he's doing. There's plenty of time for him to move his way up there. Let's wait and see. How much longer the Devils can get away with Palat riding shotgun with those two, because it's working right now, right? There's not really too much to change there. Those two, Jesper and Jack, they're both scoring. So you don't necessarily have to change that right now. Um, I know it was a discouraging, effort against the Avalanche, but they also were at the center of that comeback. So, um, let's see what they do tonight. Let's see what they do over the next few games, and let's see what happens when Dadonov returns for Palat. Because yes, I understand the issue with, oh, he's a $6 million player, he should be providing more. I don't disagree, but in this rising era of salary cap that we're in right now, that $6 million is no longer that hard to swallow right now. It's a little bit more digestible because he's more like a $3 million player. Maybe not this season, but definitely next season when the cap goes up to near 100 million. I mean, you're looking at a player who's going to be a much lower percentage of the cap at that point, and that contract is more digestible. So yes, I'm with you all. You want to see him lower in the lineup. It is not. I'm not naive to that, and I understand that line would be far better off with a finisher on the left side. I'm one of those guys who's banging the drum to bring Tyler Toffoli back, by the way. But I digress. We will see how it plays out when Dadnuff gets back here. Um, it's worth noting too, Luke Glendening and Paul Cotter have more points than Andre Palat, and they play fourth line minutes. So I mean, who are some candidates to take that spot from him if it's not Dadonov? Like we said, it's Gritsuk. Could Dawson Mercer make his way up there? Maybe. I mean, that might make them a little bit better defensively. They not that they're bad defensively, but they could probably use somebody who's a little responsible when the two of them are trying to cheat for offense. So we will see. All right. Couple last notes here, and looks like we got nobody in chat today, and that's all right. You know what? We are a new show, and we're still building out our fan base, so that's a-okay. We're gonna get there, guys, and we're gonna demand that you get in here and you start asking some questions, and you're gonna want to be here, and we're gonna love to have you. But um, last but not least, let's just talk about the three things I'm looking at ahead of tonight's game against the San Jose Sharks before puck drop, which is in 1 hour, by the way. We have 1 hour until puck drop tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Hope you had your coffee. I'm an espresso guy myself, so I might have a little bit of that after this stream. But three things we're looking for tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Number one, you want to see that 5-on-5 play continue the way it was. I know the game the other night did not look all that well, but if you look at the numbers, you look at the metrics for their 5-on-5 play, the Devils played really well actually, and that's where they scored all of their goals. None of them were on the power play, and that top 12 forwards, that rolling four lines is more prevalent than it's ever been. And Sheldon Keefe has a lot of weapons he's able to use, and um, one of the things that Tom Fitzgerald did this summer was go out and acquire quote unquote depth, and it's paying off. So kudos to Tom Fitzgerald for that. I know, many fans were questioning the summer moves and should they have made a big splash, and they signed Luke Hughes too late. Listen, he said exactly what he wanted to do at the beginning of the offseason in May. I need to go out and get some depth. And that's exactly what he did. And it's given Sheldon Keefe the ability to roll four lines, and that's contributed to a lot more goals at even strength. So they're looking real well. You want to see that continue tonight because the second thing that we're looking at is special teams. The power play did not score last game against the Colorado Avalanche. And, one of the concerns I have is this rotating power play unit that doesn't stay consistent. And one of the things that I'm questioning that Keefe continues to do is take Meyer off of power play one despite scoring last game or 2 games ago, right? Take Dougie Hamilton off power play one despite contributing multiple goals the previous game. That's one of the things that I think that the Devils need at more than anything right now is consistency, and that rotating power play, top unit power play based on matchups. I'm not sure that it's working for them all that well right now. I mean, a power play goal or two on Tuesday against the Avalanche could have made all the world of difference. Now, of course, they also could have defended a lot better and maybe got another save or two. That would have made a difference too. But we're talking about maybe a different game should they have scored on the power play, which they received a few chances for, and they did not do. So we will see. And lastly, we're looking at Seamus Casey and the Luke Hughes pairing. How are they going to fare? We're less looking at Luke Hughes. We know what we got him. We're more looking at Seamus Casey and saying, all right, kid, what can you do? Obviously, the last game was a tough one, but we're looking for the answer here. We're going to miss Brett Pesce for a couple of weeks. Are you going to be the guy who's going to step up and be able to be Mr. Reliable, or are you going to, find your way back in Utica and maybe give someone like Ethan Edwards a chance to come up because maybe they need somebody who's more defensively responsible? But we're looking at Seamus Casey with a lens tonight to see how he does defensively in his own. And we know he can score. He's done it plenty of times, distribute. We know he can transition the puck. It's really all about defending for Seamus Casey. And we'll see how he does next to Luke Hughes. That's a real run and gun tandem on the blue line. And we'll see how they fare defensively. But that's going to do it for tonight's show, Devils Rink Report, hosted by yours truly, James Nichols. If you liked this stream, please do us a favor, like, the video, like the channel, subscribe to the channel. The more you are here for us, the more you're commenting, the more you're in our chat, the more you're engaging with Devil's Rink Report, the better Devil's Rink Report can become. So thank you so much for watching today's stream. We'll be rolling out with producer Sean clip after clip of this episode. And we'll see you next week back to regular scheduled programming on Fridays at 3:30. This week we took a bit of a pause from Friday for Halloween. Yes, Halloween. I have not for myself, but I will be taking my daughter out trick-or-treating. So I hope you all enjoy spooky season. And we will see you next week, 3:30 on Friday with another guest. More to talk about Devils hockey. And again, like I said, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications for when we go live and post new videos. And enjoy the game tonight. 10 o'clock puck drop against the San Jose Sharks. My name is James Nichols, and we will see you next time.